paper delivery boys, taxi drivers, cops, who stomped their feet and adjusted their scarves and dreamed of tropical beaches and sun-warmed skin. Near a forlorn section of the Calumet River, Detective Addie Bisset stared at the body of a man murdered more than once. By her count, he'd received 3 fatal wounds, and although all were cruel, she couldn't be sure which injury had served as the actual coup de grace. It was the detective's macabre game. Had it been the slashed throat, the tightened noose, or the bone-crushing blow to the head? The body lay curled on its side, half in, half out of the water. The murky slosh of the Calumet broke and swirled around the dead man's legs, which were held in place by wooden stakes. She noted the victim's bound hands, his nakedness. The injuries to his face she hoped were post-mortem. The man's wounds spoke of ritualistic violence. The carved sticks arranged around his head suggested a dark magic. Addie's fingers rose to touch the cross around her neck, and she found it oddly reassuring that after 4 years of seeing almost everything one human could do to another, death could still leave her shaken. She checked the time on her phone, 6:50 a.m. The machinery of homicide investigation, what Addie thought of as the 3-ring circus in blue, was about to begin. In an hour, this haunted place of wind and water and the cries of birds would be carefully orchestrated pandemonium. First things first. She crooked a finger at the uniform who'd called in the body. "Find Dr. Evan Wilding," she said. "He's probably off in a park or reserve somewhere in the city hunting with his hawk. Start with Washington Park near the university, and use mounted patrol to track him down. Here's his cell number." She ripped a sheet from her notebook and jotted numbers on the paper. "But he probably won't answer. When patrol finds him, tell him I need him ASAP. Tell him we've got one of the weird ones." The young cop squinted at her from beneath his cap with its blue and white checkered tartan. His cheeks and ears were red with cold. "Is Dr. Wilding the one they called a sparrow?" "That's him." "The dwarf, right? I read about some case he solved. He's a forensic semiotician." The officer's voice trailed off into a linguistic thicket. "Forensic semiotician." Addie turned her attention and her phone back toward the corpse. She snapped a photo. "And he prefers to be called a person with dwarfism? Or better yet, call him by his name?" The cop persisted. But what is that, exactly? A forensic semiotician?" Another snap. The corpse seemed to lunge in the phone's flash. "It's someone who studies the signs left by a killer. Any rituals the killer performs or writing he leaves at the scene." "Signs, ma'am?" She turned to face him. The officer looked barely old enough to vote. His eyes were locked on some distant point high above the body. Maybe this was his first. "Signs. Why don't you ask him when you find him?" She made a shooing gesture. "Now go, and don't let him put you off. I bloody well want him here." "Yes, ma'am." The patrolman spared a glance for the body, then headed up the hill toward his blue and white unit parked on the dirt road behind Addie's SUV. His shoes squelched in the mud along the path he'd taped off from the rest of the crime scene. Addie turned back to the corpse. She had learned to say bloody well from the very British Evan. The phrase had served her well ever since she'd given up swearing for Lent one year and decided she liked being the cop who didn't curse. Always the rebel. A witch's gale scattered wavelets across the river, carrying the bite from Lake Michigan, the punch of it like a cuff from a bear. The body's lower half swayed in the reeds. Only the fact that it had been staked down kept the river from tugging it into deeper water. Far away, lights gleamed on the Chicago skyline, illuminating the Willis and Tribune towers, the rippling visage of the Aqua Tower, and the square-shouldered, no-nonsense rise of the John Hancock Building. The Mag Mile Lights Festival was only a week away. Thanksgiving, a few days after that. A holiday this man would never again celebrate. "I'm sorry for what's happened to you," she said to the corpse. The body stirred as if still capable of hearing and understanding, as if it longed to rise out of the dark water and take in the glittering lights with her. Imagine feast-laden tables and crackling fires, plump turkeys and tart cranberries, and the velvet smoothness of all things pumpkin, finally raising a boisterous toast with family and friends. "Here's to a good year." Addie touched the cross around her neck again, and kept taking photos.